Good morning, online people. Nice to see you. You feeling relaxed? A telling silence. It's just space. Bubbles in space. Speaking of which, we have the idea, circumstances permitting, to invite everybody who would like to come and see the temple tomorrow. Our new skylit temple. We'll go, Tuesday. After, we'll finish at 1 or so, and then we'll go straight there. So I'm mentioning it now, and I can say more about it later, but in case you'd like to plan to have a lunch to take with you, because that's our afternoon off also. So we'll go there and share it, and we'd love to show it to you. And then we can eat lunch there, and then we're free until we start at 6:45. We like to blow bubbles in the temple. That was the connection. That's Simone's legacy, and totally into it. And if we could take you guys along, we will, but I don't know that yet. All right. So let's do our opening aspiration and Dzogchen Barwa, and then we'll do a little kind of free-form guided meditation. Settle in.
So we'll start with the aspirations. May all beings always have happiness and its causes. May all beings always be free of pain and its causes. May all beings always be pain-free and live happily. May no beings ever cling to those near nor spurn those far. For as long as space abides, as long as the world remains, just so long may I be there, resolving all beings' pain. And we'll do Great Bliss Blazing in Tibetan today. It's on page 5 in the regular booklet. Oma Hum Hri, Great Bliss Blazing. Sorry, you did. Okay, we'll try again. Oma Hum Hri, Dzogchen Barwa Wangi Potandu, Dedon Soso Dope Yeshe Macha Deden Peme Ranshin Le, Dorje Nima Nangwa Chembeba, Sugar Wataye Dorje Chu, Jikten Wanchu Tu Che Zasu, Pema Gelba Kordeng Awangyor, Nasi Silman Wanshin Heruka, Samwa Yeshe Vajra Barahi, Dem Shodebe Gelpo De Chinder, Malu Gecko Yicho Rijima, Choton Shakya Wanchu De Donkar, Wanze Dorje Bao Daki Tsoho Nandon Yamba Chimba Ngang Nidun, Dorje Guyi Gargi Sisumyo, Game Sungi Shede Kamsungu, Yoser Marva Korde Yong Lakya Hapsi Shindang Shio Shingdu Barje, Dorje Shakpa Chembo Dzogini, Naming and Drupta Gucho Soshing, Dorje Shakir Shakpa Chembo Yi, Dang Shide Wacham Shodam Sheva, Taye Gucho Dawe Rogarchen, Tilgi Gombu Shewa Shinshupe, Rapcham Sasum Wanki Lasso La Gupe Sowa Depso Chinjilo, Chotung Under Dube Beltada, Tome Wandu Chebe Ngundrup So. say refuge in bodhicitta, page 12. In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving, love, mandal, until full bodhi I seek refuge. Kunchok sunga Yeshe Tsogyal salun tigle rangjing shangchup sem ngo rangjing tu shekil korla jangchup ningve bardu kyap suchi. In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving, love, mandal, until full bodhi I seek refuge. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains. So all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise bodhi through 4 boundless states. Oh, not sognang wachude sun reji, kor walugu jundu kyam vedro. Rang rega sel ying sung el sechir, se me shi ying ang ne sem che do. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains. So all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise bodhi through 4 boundless states. And we'll say the mandala offering and request for teaching, page 39. We'll do it in English. This ground perfumed and with flowers strewn, Mount Meru, 4 islands, sun and moon, I give seeing them as Buddha lands, whereby may all enter in pure lands. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnayatayami. Reflecting on all beings, our specific states of mind, great or lesser, will you please turn our wheel of Dharma now. Kyabda Gelwanam Tangyer Mepe Gandrin Sumden Chinshan Lamache Rigzin Jurme Tupten Jatsola Sol Wadep Sonyam Len Tarchin Sho. And as the blessings gently descend, perhaps in the form of bright orbs of light, perhaps in other formations, perhaps simply, gently alighting rays of light. Everything blessed in this way, you, everyone with us today, wherever you are, everything is blessed into lightness, light, radiance, clarity, and all the so-called material things as well, wherever you are. They are showing their true nature, which is luminous,
which is in no way separate from the reality from which they have emerged, from which we all emerge, the waves in the ocean of reality that we are, luminous, shining. What is it like to imagine this? What is it like even to consider this as something you would bring to mind? Everything luminously translucent, you yourselves luminously translucent, transparent, vividly appearing. And yet nothing substantial. Vivid yet empty, empty yet vivid. If you just let yourself feel into what this feels like to imagine, without thinking too much about it, like a rainbow in space, so beautiful, so vivid, so inspiring, and yet nothing exactly there. So everything is rainbow-like. You are rainbow-like. The room, the walls, the ceiling, the floor. How does that feel? So when we remind ourselves that the nature of everything is luminous, even if we don't understand this at all intellectually, but we may have some experiences in life or practice that somehow resonate with this. Looking at the clear sky filled with light, sometimes with rainbows. There's a way in which the ordinary stopping of attention at the shores of a particular object need not occur. You can look through a rainbow also. You can look through space. We are luminous space. We are translucent. So what is it like to gaze at a field? That is to say, to gaze at a certain area before your open eyes and just rest in the presence of whatever is appearing without focusing on any particular object, letting it all appear as waves rising from the same ocean. In a way, it looks the same, but in another way, it feels maybe kind of different. So I invite you, as feels suitable for you, to take a moment to settle, feeling that you're able to not only sense into the support coming from the center of the earth, but maybe dropping down into your deep belly so you have a lot of support. Belly is the navel center, is where the body begins. It's the most grounded place in the body. So when we rest our sense there, our attention there, the sense of power, the power of stability, the power of ground. It may help to follow your in-breath and the energy of it down to your belly. Just be at rest. in this place of light, this teaching place, there's a protection from all the concerns that dizzy us in our lives. Here, there's nothing to do about any of those things right now. There's only an invitation to be and to trust that in being, we will be able to do what we need to do when we leave. That's for later. For now, we're investing in our future doing by simply being. So rest in your belly. See if it becomes relaxed enough that kind of let go your belly a little bit. Let it fill with air. The energy of your in-breath, not doing anything too stressful, not doing anything uncomfortable. Everybody's body is different. But that air is a nourishment. It's a strength. So as is comfortable, let it fill your belly. And that helps you bring your attention to your belly. And that gives your attention a stable ground. If you know how to tuck in a little bit of air there, you can do that very gently. And at your own pace, take a little scan of your scalp. Just a gentle invitation, just by giving it your attention. It's an expression of caring, and that itself may bring some more relaxation to your scalp, your cheeks, your mouth, jaw, gently caressing with your attention. And maybe there'll be some more relaxation opening up. Your shoulders, especially your shoulders. And your chin is tucked in just a little bit, and you can feel the lengthening and strengthening of the canal, the channel through the center of your body. And that support, which really comes also supported from the center of the earth, may allow the rest of your muscles to just naturally be more at ease, like silk draped over a coat hanger. The hanger holds it, the silk is totally relaxed. So you have this inner pillar that holds you. Your muscles need not. Your hands, your feet. And if there is tension there, just acknowledge it with kindness. Don't get into a fight. Sometimes there's tension. You can still find relaxation underneath that, perhaps. And staying deeply present in your belly, energetically present in your belly. If your eyes are not already open, or if they're way wide open, let them be open to a certain degree so that you can see a certain swath of whatever is in front of you, so that it's comfortable, not wide open, but not closed. Maybe you see a swath of 2 or 3 feet or 5 feet, maybe not more than that. And all is still as much as you imagine is revealing its nature of lightness. Everything is appearing to you clearly, rising luminously in the mirror of your mind. And your gaze and your attention is for the whole field. So you define the field. That means the area that easily appears to you as you're sitting right now. Could be a unit of squares on the floor or 2 people in your line of sight. Whatever you like. What's comfortable. There's no right, no wrong. Just delimit a field of your attention. And then rest in open presence to that field. Somehow knowing that the different colors that are appearing to you, the different colors and shapes, which describes everything that can appear to your eye consciousness as just colors and shapes arising out of the space of being itself. And so somehow this field is a whole. And let's be curious, is it possible to see the different elements that are appearing to you as somehow a unified expression from wholeness? So less the sense of 2 people, for example, as a kind of fluid melody of color and shape arising from the same source. And does that in any way affect the sense of dualism, the sense of separateness that we generally assume among objects of sight? Let's play with that. It's an exploration. It's everyone will have, you will have your own experience. Just notice and value your own experience. It's teaching you something about your experience, which is crucial for us. How is that? Can you stay open to that field that you have defined? It may be that either because there's some movement in front of you, or just because our minds are like that, you find that the lens of your attention will collapse onto some particular detail. Just notice what that feels like. Maybe has a little bit of a different feeling than when you remind yourself and open up again the lens of your attention to that feel. And the more relaxed you are, the easier it is to stay open to that feel. Or you may find that your attention collapses into something that's going on internally for you. And where does that collapse begin? With some little bit of tension? So you notice what is occurring, but stay with the field. Let yourself settle deep in your belly. So your eyes are just open, letting appear what appears, not really looking at anything. The mirror of your mind is just receiving. And there's something in your mind that doesn't change, no matter what is appearing. something in your being that doesn't change. And now let your attention create your own body as the field of your attention, so you're present to your whole body. So this is kinesthetic rather than visual. You're aware of your crown, your ears, your chin, your neck, your shoulders, your chest. And you're aware also of what it feels like inside your head, your neck, your chest, your lower body, your upper legs, the inside of your thighs, knees, calves, feet. If I'm going too fast, go at your own pace. If I'm going too slow for you, go at your own pace. So the field of your kinesthetic experience right now is your whole body. If that's too difficult, maybe just your right arm from shoulder to fingertips. And if you like, everything still is of light. Not that you're making effort at this. So is it possible to include your kinesthetic sense of your whole body in the field of your attention as well as the visual field that you identified earlier? All of it arisen from the original source of everything. All of it. You, what you see before you, just like popped out from space, just there. Just see how that is for you. These are explorations, not commands. How is that? Is it that in order even to be oriented towards seeing this field of various sensations and various colors and shapes, even just to say the word field, is to suggest something whole, some unity behind this variation in sensation and perception of shape and color? And what is that? If you're starting to feel that what you see is the elements are not as separate and distinct, even though they're vivid, they're not as separate from each other in the way that we ordinarily feel, but more like looking into a mirror and all the different colors and apparitions that you see in the mirror, they're all part of the field of the mirror, and they all have the nature of the mirror. So in this way, to the extent, even a little bit, that there's a sense of a field from which these experiences, imaging arises, like light traveling through space. You can't see light without somehow recognizing there's a space there. So in a similar way, is there some sense of what that field is in which you and what you see and your sensations are appearing? Isn't there space right there as part of what you are seeing or feeling? Isn't everything a kind of decoration of that basic, essential space, which is also the source of what appears in it? Even to begin to imagine that you and what you see are of light is to, another way to say that is, it seems to be space there, right mixed in with the vivid appearance. It's hard to explain, it doesn't make sense, and yet, perhaps you sense it. And it's a kind of wholeness. Just like a mirror of various appearances is a wholeness. Everything is in the mirror. Everything is in the same dream. Everything is in the field of your experience. When you're ready, just let go of all of that and just simply rest and be with however you are right now, without trying to fix, make it any different. If judgment comes up, let it dissolve. It will. You just sit and be in the space of being. Your space of being. What did you notice? Some of you are smiling. There's something. What did you notice? Online? Here? Ice cream cone? Can you talk a little louder then?
I can try. There it is. When you mentioned the silk on the hanger, I mentioned I felt my whole body kind of relax.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. How did you know that you were relaxed? What did you sense?
I just felt a scan from top to bottom as it went down, relaxing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How quickly did it move? What you showed? Is that how?
Kind of like
Kind of
like
that?
I showed, yes.
Oh, nice.
It took maybe a second or two.
I see. And then what happened?
No,
What?
I just thought Anne's onto something here.
Okay.
or the power of suggestion. I don't know.
I see. So you had that physical sensation which you noticed, and then you went to a thought, the
Yes.
power of suggestion, or
Yes.
something like that. And did that affect the relaxation that you had experienced, or not?
No, it stayed with me.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah, Sharon.
Towards the end of the meditation, when you invited us to, well, before you said let go, and whatever state you're in, just be there. I think it was maybe when we were both, sensing what was going on inside our body and sort of, gazing and trying to experience the field that we had identified as light, but also I don't remember how you said it now, but to get in touch with the field from which all of that is coming from. Mm-hmm. I just had this sense of feeling like I might look like Dzogchen Rinpoche, that not really, but that image of him, on the throne where he's looking out, and he seems to just know everything, but in a way that he doesn't care a bit about knowing everything.
Right.
And he's just totally relaxed, and so it made me start laughing. I mean, I was really, then I was so tickled that I, felt myself, as though I could be like that. So it was very pleasant.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the knowing that you had? I understand. I think I know the image of Dzogchen Rinpoche that you might be referring to.
It's the most famous one, I feel.
Yeah. And I'm interested in your experience of yourself being that way. Somebody showing
Well, it was really more of, oh, that's it. That's
Where?
the image.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Karen Burry is showing us. Wow, that was fast. She knows everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does it feel like to you when something like that is arising? What was...
Well, I can't say that what I was saying that I thought Dzogchen Rinpoche looked like was arising for me. It's not that I really felt like I had this all-knowing state.
What was that like?
It was as though I could sort of sense what he seems to be experiencing in that photograph.
And how did you know that?
Because I almost felt like I had that. I don't know how I knew that. It felt like it was something I was seeing or feeling that I was looking like Dzogchen Rinpoche. I don't know.
So what does it mean to look like Dzogchen Rinpoche? So you kind of went like this. Maybe you felt like your face had held something of his face. Mm-hmm. And what was that? And then you said, no, I want to go back to this. You said like you felt like you could kind of know everything. And I understand that's a very interesting statement, and it seems to describe a particular experience. And I just wonder if there's anything more that comes to mind as you maybe go back to that And what happened just before, or what happened after, what was that actually like for you?
I was really struck by the experience of tuning into the sensations of my body while also trying to allow my vision to remain at play. And so it actually did make for that to become more light-like. More so than when I was just
interesting.
doing the vision piece, when it was a combination of sensing what was going on inside, and then that became more, it seemed like Richard and Deborah were more made of light, and everything in this area was just glowing, and that's when I began to have this sensation of feeling like maybe what I'm experiencing is a taste of what Dzogchen experiences when he has that.
I see.
That,
So that's quite interesting. So when, this is what I understand, at the time, this seemed to come up in conjunction with when you were combining the sensation of your body with the visual, the kinesthetic and the visual. And then Deborah and Richard started to look more like, or feel more like light to you. And that would be another interesting thing to ask you about. I'm not sure I'll do it right now, but I invite, what does it mean that was it visual? Was it kinesthetic? So you say that occurred, and that was when you felt like you might be having experience of what it looks like to you that Dzogchen Rinpoche has.
But maybe also when you added the piece of considering the field from which all of this is arising, both how I was experiencing,
I see,
and what I was experiencing inside, and then what is that arising from, and somehow that then
interesting
made it all sort of, and I feel like that's sort of how he is, He's in this state, but very relaxed.
Right, for sure. So if I can just ask you one other thing.
Okay.
So when you say that you started to get a sense of this field or something from which everything is arising, is there anything you can say about that?
I think it would take a while to get there.
Okay.
So maybe,
On pause. Okay.
Except maybe I would say, there was an aliveness.
There was an aliveness. It makes sense. I can't tell if she's about to say something else or not. No. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So, there's some people online who are being represented very vigorously by our broadcasters, and then we'll come back to Richard. Hi. Renee, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell who it is, even though you're very big on the screen. Yes, thank you. Okay, got it.
No, it was me.
You are radiant light on our screen here.
So there's something that started with me this morning, and it's kind of followed right into that meditation. And it's that being able to balance between tension, effort, and non-effort. And, I was thinking about it in my walking, working, everyday life. And it kind of came up as we were doing that meditation. So it's finding that balance. When you had mentioned the visual field and that is everything is coming, from that same source, it's like I'm trying to contemplate that. I'm really thinking on that. And I realized I was making it too heavy. There was just too much. But then when I totally relax, it's like the pendulum shifts the other direction. So then there's like a moment of just open awareness that then starts going into too relaxed, almost sleepy, kind of blanking out, which then causes me to tense up and expect. And it just keeps, like I can't, should I even be trying to settle right here somewhere? And I'm not sure how to even go about doing that. And then it's that question comes up with me all the time, every day as I'm doing housework, as I'm at work, as I'm, taking care of my horses. It's how do you keep that open awareness and then realize it goes too far into grasping, or you're present with somebody, but you're not even talking because you're just open and listening, and they're like, hello, are you paying attention? I find it hard to balance all of that. I find it hard in meditation and outside of meditation.
It's a beautiful koan to carry that you're carrying, that question. Really, it's very hard, as you know. I can't help but think, as you probably do also, of Machi Klepton's famous phrase, basically not too tight and not too loose, but really tighten with tightness, and then somehow within that find looseness. And your description of the pendulum, I think, it feels very apt and very real, and it may not be a decision for you to make when this question that you're asking, but maybe just what you're actually doing is bringing you to that, because, as you say, the pendulum is moving and then it goes what seems to be too far, and then you compensate. It seems like you're very skilled at that. And that you are also very skilled at it's clear to you when it's like where you feel this is in fact a balance, and yet it doesn't stay there. But again, I think this is where grace comes in. It seems that you're watching that it will, because something in you knows what that is already.
So it kind of feels like that constant impermanence too. Like everything is constantly moving. And therefore, how do you find stillness in constant movement? I mean, even between your breath, as you're sitting on the cushion, it seems to be all of it is still doing that same dance,
even the question, how do you find stillness when there's movement, means that the stillness, even while you're seeing the movement. I mean, the stillness is not separate from the movement. That's what we're trying to, just the visual. So the famous thing that we always say is that, vividly appearing yet empty. And that is some way, maybe, I don't know if that's easier to understand or not, but we say it a lot because the visual sense for many people is the strongest. However, where does sound come from? Does it come from the drum, or does it come from some kind of open space in the drum, right? Some kind of stillness. You couldn't have movement. You couldn't recognize movement as movement if you didn't know what stillness was. It's not there when there's movement.
I have to think on that.
Please. Think and also don't think, because these things that are riddles to our minds are just kind of true, How do you know something's movement? You can't know movement without knowing that it's different from stillness, and therefore you know stillness. And, when we're looking into the field from which everything comes, the field is not changing. This is one of the great things of reality that we often hear about in Dzogchen. The ground itself is never changing. And that unchangingness is the birthless ground from which the unborn spontaneously or unceasingly present. So at the most profound view, which we're seeking to cultivate, which becomes more and more explicit through these practices, particularly in the Yeshe Tsogyal practice that we're doing, there is a dawning possibility of recognizing that the movement is nothing but an expression of the stillness. There's nothing actually happening. There's nothing moving away from the stillness, just like there's nothing moving outside of reality or outside of your own experience or, like that. The waves don't leave the ocean. We don't leave the spacious arena of the Dharma Dhatu. Not possible. The sound doesn't leave the silence. The movement doesn't leave the stillness. It arises from it, it dissolves into it. Huh. These are the kinds of things that they say.
Yeah. I
But
have some sense of what you're saying.
Yes,
That
I'm sure
is
you
helpful.
do.
That is helpful.
Good.
Thank you.
And that sense is valuable. And I think this is what Harvey's point was also yesterday. And what I wanted to say about that is that the question that somebody brought up, which of course we all wonder, am I doing it right? Is this it? Is this the yin? Is this the Dharma Dhatu? Is this really Rikpa? Is this really... As much as I'm as inclined as anybody to want to ask that question, it just really seems like it's the wrong question. It's not a helpful question. If you don't know, then you don't know. But you do know your experience, and your experience will teach you. And that therefore, when you say, I kind of have a sense, that's important. That sense that you kind of have is like the famous light of the jewel that leads you to the jewel.
Thank you.
So, thank you too. Richard had his hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
So when we started with the visual field, and then you added the kinesthetic element.
Yeah.
And so I sort of contracted in on that for a little bit, and then you had us go to both simultaneously, and so my experience was at first that the two were distinct, that there was the kinesthetic and there was the visual. But then it was like they all merged into one thing. They weren't separate.
What was that one thing?
Well,
or how did you know
that,
it?
I mean,
how
that
did
one
you know
thing is,
that one thing? What was that sense that you had? How was that?
I think it was just bare perception, without, to the extent that I was able to let go of any kind of, thinking or analysis or anything about it. Then it's just perception, and no matter what avenue.
What is perception like? That's just perception.
It's very vivid.
Oh.
And it's it's really like pre-thought. It's
Pre-thought.
Any thought that we have is just our added
So
stuff.
that pre-thought feeling, is that accessible to you at the moment? Can you say what happened in it? What is it?
It's I was, I suppose, trying too hard to just rest in it, and therefore it gets kind of jangly when you do that.
But you identified it very clearly, it seems like.
Yeah.
So then there's a sense of like wanting, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
going to stay here,
Yeah.
and then of course that shifts it, which is
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
notice, just
Right.
to trace that process in your body, because bringing to awareness means that it loses its, it can begin
Right.
to dissolve.
Right. Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So a state without judgment,
Yeah.
without that
Yeah.
wasn't your word. Your word was,
Without.
conception,
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
without chatter,
Yeah.
actually. That eternal
Yeah.
narrator of the mind.
And then
Thank you.
then the aspect of, then you asked us to identify the field, what's the field
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is all coming from. And, once again, that's, that's like an unfindability for me. It's like.
What did it feel like when you looked into that?
I mean, it's like this. It's kind of indescribable, but it's like
Okay, it's
the ultimate.
indescribable. What is it like to be with?
It just
that
feels like
indescribable?
it's the ultimate resting place.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
It is.
there's the potential of actually just letting everything be and just going there.
There is
Yeah.
that potential.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's wonderful to see. Even a glimpse,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It is the ultimate resting. And that's what we sing about every day in our mindless way, and we think about something else, right? That all may rest in their clear mind sphere.
Right.
That's the yin. That's the Dharma Dhatu. That is the source of everything, in which there is apparent arising and, unceasing arising and no borning,
Yeah.
unborn ceaselessness. That's the only place that can happen. Otherwise, but everything does happen in that place, so we're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. 3. All right, then we'll stop after 3, if that's okay. But I'm very interested in this, and I also, whatever you are noticing is potentially of great value for you. So, we don't have the possibility of everybody speaking right now, but please write down. And actually, I'm interested if you'd like to, send me a note. Because I feel that there's a lot of learning in this kind of process. And yeah, I'll say more about it later. Okay. Surabhi.
I happen to be in my room.
I can see that.
I have the picture of Dzogchen Rinpoche talking about.
Yeah.
And then I have another picture. Underneath that picture in Dzogchen Rinpoche's writing is this message. And I think it's for Sharon and for all of us. Image of this photo. Then look at yourself. Then look at who is the one seeing. If you can discern that, you are a superior person.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Who's next? Ken. Ken? I see you waving. Are you unmuted?
Yeah. Trying to get this.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry. So it was a really powerful guided meditation, most powerful that I've ever experienced. And the most interesting part, I guess, objectively, was that when you guided me to zoom in on that little bit of space in front, and as the felt sense was involved with just kind of a sense of flow, it really looked like, well, the image in front was you, and you became it was almost like a black and white image, and the edges of the contrast in the image were kind of a luminous, kind of a rainbowy quality. But your image shifted to what looked like maybe a young Ketsun Songpo. And it was really, but I wasn't attached to it. I just let it kind of pass through, but it was very animated and alive. And the sense of space was really that originary kind of space.
Originary. How is that? Or what is the sense of originary space like?
It's in my belly. It feels like a really warm ball of light. It's really it's very much about the body.
Very much about the body.
About the body.
Yeah.
I noticed my mind as you were guiding us. I just kept letting go and it just kind of glowed, and it was. I still feel it. It's really beautiful.
How did you know it was letting go?
The sense of spaciousness. Like I was fully in my body. I was fully feeling, but I was also very loose, very almost like I was. Someone said yesterday, kind of gone to particles, and those particles. Just a sense of being and holding space at the same time. Really,
being and holding space at the same time.
Yeah.
And was this, go ahead.
Some of the visual was a sense of points of light, but also rays kind of popping into being everything that's around in the room in that swath of space.
So is that popping simultaneous with being and holding space? Was it alternation between?
Yeah, it was all at the same time.
I see.
It was part you could notice it, but not intellectualize about it, which I think helps to hold the experience. So it was really refreshing.
Thank you.
Precious. Thank you.
It is precious because in what you're saying and what each of you have said, and I am imagining in what many of you, maybe all of you are thinking, there is what I'm hearing is a translation into real experience of, what we're reading about in the text, what Longchenpa talks about, what we're told, these words that are so beautiful and absolutely necessary. I mean, the reason that they're there is for us to translate them into our own experience in our own bodies, in our own ways. You might feel it in the belly, you might feel it in your face somehow, people are feeling different ways, and it's very kind of all of you to share. I mean, I always feel this is a generosity because we get to see how people are affected differently, very profoundly, and it just feels very real, not like theoretical stuff. It's very real, and it's very isomorphic with, that is to say, it very much reflects the actual teaching. That's what we're seeking to experience in our own words and in our own senses. So thank you again, Ken. Yes, so there's one other person you said. Who's that? Oh, John. Kate.
Actually, Kate.
Kate. Arising out of the same space.
Exactly.
What?
I said exactly.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Good. So when we first started gazing at the field, I had this sense of kind of, it was much more on the visual side, like a brightness, but also a sense of lightness, like as opposed to heavy and light, so I had both of that sense. And then when we started kind of the more kinesthetic and getting very relaxed, there was a kind of a pretty big shift. And towards the end, I had a really strong sense of dreamlike state, like really strong.
What is that like, a dreamlike state?
For me, it feels like a unity, because maybe like when the sense I have when I dream is that there is only one thing. There's not like external and me. It's all this kind of, and it may be kind of a limited sphere still for me, but it has a really strong sense of unity. Very strong. And what I noticed towards the end, right before we, had the break, was I had this question, like suddenly my mind turned on and went, is this a dream or not a dream? And the answer was like, I cannot tell. I mean, really, that there was no way to tell. That was, I kind of explored that for a second, and there was just no way to tell. So my experience seemed to be pretty different from other people with this, but it was just
I don't know, that sense of unity that you had, and the inclusiveness of lightness and heaviness in the same, as it were, unity or field. Yeah. I'm hearing you say that, and that seems very resonant. Different and not different, but more to the point, your experience very much really reflecting very, very vital, essential points in the teaching, right? We are told everything is one unbounded wholeness, tiglinachik, very important word in Dzogchen. And we are learning that there is, after all, when we become Vajrasattva and this, you said when in the dream state, there's no outside and inside, right? So in the instructions that we saw yesterday in the Vajrasattva practice, as we're being flooded through with all of this Amrita in the shape of these expressions of awakening, tigles and so on, we become, there's no inside and outside. That's kind of really the heart of that practice, right? That there's no inside and outside. That means there's just some open, whatever we call it, space, field. So that's reflecting in your experience, it seems to me. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
It's really helpful to have reference points in your own experiences, as you and everyone has been describing, because this teaching is, it's some maybe almost too beautiful in a certain kind of way. It seems like, oh yeah, this great thing that Longchenpa had or Adzom Rinpoche had. And I just feel that again and again, it's really important to see that you are having experiences that teach you something about this, and right? So that what they are teaching, what they are talking, what we are doing in this practice, it has a certain kind of formal structure, which I think, personally, helps us. It gives us a support. And also within that, we have our own experiences, and those experiences cannot help but be meaningful. It's kind of, So, yeah, thank you. So when you read, when you recite, you have a reference point in your own experience, and that reference point will change as your experience develops. The aha experience of reading something that you've been reading for 40 years and like, oh, I get it, or get it in a new way, because the teaching is kind of infinitely rich, isn't it? It just opens and opens and opens. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really heard that about the unity and the dreamlike state. And there is no difference, we are told. Not so easy to realize. So very nice to have that appreciation, in that moment, that you can't tell. How could you tell? How would you tell?
Exactly. In a way, it's very shocking. There was a sense of shock there.
Is
there
that
is
right?
Yeah, because, know intellectually, there's really no way to tell.
Right.
But to not be able to really tell, it's a little bit of a shock.
Yeah. So and exploring that state of not being able to really tell, that's not an ordinary mind state, And many of the things that you have described, mostly also, were about, when we can't talk about it, it's because it's not usual kind of subject-object thing. And that suggests that we are getting introduced to something beyond mind. And we know that there is something, what we mean by ordinary mind. Ordinary mind will never solve this puzzle. We try and we try and we try, right? And then finally, we have the wisdom to realize that that's not, and we have to try to really see that. But as you're saying, then there's an experience, there's a sense, right? So also, this is why we have recently, those of you who have been around on our Tuesday evenings, we really do look into, and sometimes in retreats too, the different kind of experience that comes with thinking and with direct sensing, right? And you're also talking about that. Richard was also talking about that. Sharon also, that what our practice is inviting us into with the Vajrasattva practice, for example, and particularly, is to a state of non-duality. Well, the ordinary mind doesn't know anything about that. It likes it, though. We like to talk about non-duality, right? But it's good that we like it. So I'll just say thank you, Kate, because you maybe... Now you're no longer filling up a whole screen, which might be a relief to you.
Okay, thank you.
You all look really good on the big screen, I have to say. You really do. To be invited into this state of non-dualism, or to be invited as we are invited as we turn to the offering of the mandala, we're invited again and again into reality itself, which is not something that our ordinary mind can grasp. And that means that something else is coming up and grasping isn't even the word, is mirroring, is sensing, is connecting with, is knowing. There is another kind of knowing. And the more we can, just hang with that in our own experience and realize that, the fact that we can't figure it out intellectually is true. It's not because we're failures intellectually. And at the same time, if one is interested, as you know, there is a lot to learn in the Buddhist tradition. There is a Longchenpa, Jigme Lingpa, Adzom Rinpoche, there is a lot to say about reality, and it's very helpful. It's helpful in the way of the light of a jewel leading to the jewel. Memorizing the words, well, that's also kind of helpful, actually. It kind of gets it into your body and your being. But, there's something else. When we say we have faith in this tradition, we have devotion, we have aspiration, I think that partly that is expressing we have some kind of confidence, increasingly based on our own experience, but maybe from the beginning, just somehow kind of from the get-go. I think those of us who are attracted to Dzogchen at all, because a lot of people aren't, I don't know what's with them, but, the fact that we're attracted to this kind of teaching at all, we'll spend a week and more in daily practice and organizing our lives so we can really tend to it, and sometimes thinking we must be crazy because it doesn't exactly make sense, but still we have to do it because we love it. That is a devotion, a gesture of confident love in the existence of something that is not just monkey mind. No matter how overwhelmed we are 24/7 by monkey mind, somehow we know, and we have confidence in that. We have faith that that is true. Don't you? I mean, you wouldn't sit here for all this if you didn't, right? So I just want to, and that's very, very important. You know, they always say faith is really important. And particularly confidence that this is not only that it exists, but it's a possibility for us, for you. I think I've told you in the very first kind of like Semtri that Rinpoche gave to somebody at Samye Chimpuk when we first met him. And the first question was, you remember what the first question was? I tell you this often, I think. Do you feel you can become a Buddha in this life? And she was like, she wasn't even a Buddhist. I mean, she was a practitioner. And then, yeah, well, why shouldn't that be possible? Hasn't life shown you that you aren't stuck in whatever particular frame of the movie you happen to be in at any given time? Haven't you noticed that sometimes you're really happy and sometimes you're really miserable? Remember the old lady outside of Tisha's meditation hut, and sometimes she's laughing and sometimes she's crying? That's it. But there's something in which that is contained. Neither the laughing nor the crying, neither the samsara nor nirvana even, are the end of the story, right? There is some ground. That's what the she is in Dzogchen, the ground that is, they say, before, you know. It's of neither samsara nor nirvana, and that's the field, that's the yin, that's the dharma dhatu. That we're always in it. There's nothing but dharma dhatu. We make up so much stuff. Everything that makes you tense is not dharma dhatu. Or at least is a sign that we're not recognizing it as dharma dhatu. It is dharma dhatu. And all we have to do, you know, as she goes on to say, this Dakini, you know, it's just a little thing, just a little switch we have to make, just a little error from which the whole of this crazy mishigas of cyclic existence and, you know, tremendous suffering and torment arises. Just a little error. I don't know. I'm starting to believe her. You know, I've heard this for Keita Sambor first told us this, I think in 1974 when he first taught actually Words of My Perfect Teacher at University of Virginia, and that's where his tantric practice in Nyingma comes from. And it was like, what do you mean it's just a little error? This is a big problem. But, you know, even just listening to those of you who spoke and listening also to the not that I, you know, there's something I imagine happening for many of you that, yes, look how you made a switch, you know, just a little suggestion, right? And there was a switch in your experience. So what does that suggest? It suggests that you are very permeable to this, that you already know something about it and you are in a position to know more about it because it's just a little gossamer, you know? Oh, yeah, Rinpoche said something amazing recently. He said, this is the gesture that he used, and that's what's reminding me because I went like this. He says, it's just, you know, if you want to blow up the world, what do you need? You don't need like some big earth-moving device, you know, or you need something. The tiniest thing is what you need, an atom. That's how you blow up the world, if that's what you're intent on doing. So if you want to blow up your whole samsaric orientation in life, you know, that thing that bothers us and controls us from morning till night, just need some very little thing. And then he came up with this, he was half speaking English. He said something like, Dzogchen bomb. Or, you know, so that little, it's just some very fine thing that's really going to poof, you know, everything. This very fine thing, so fine that it's like light. It's luminous. You can't put your hand on it. You can't even talk about it, but it lights up your being when you sense it. Why could it light up your being if your being wasn't already that, you know? Yeah, so Dzogchen bomb. Something like, but it's true, and it's just very interesting, especially, you know, this is part of the move from the sutra path And I know some of you even haven't spent decades hearing about how it takes aeons to get to enlightenment. And there are all these stages of the path that take very long and that require a lot of effort. And that's the first training that we get. And we say, okay, I don't care how long it takes, right? I'm not in for this. It's not a sprint. I don't care if it takes 1,000,000 eons. What else is there to do? You know, really? But try to recognize reality and then help other people do the same thing. So it's not out of a sense of that's just too long. You know, I'm just too busy. But to talk about this being a small error, you know, sometimes just two, hearing about silk on a hanger, for Pete's sake. You know, how available does that mean that this is for you? Even though we spend our lives in tension, notice. I mean, I think that's another thing to notice when these kinds of experiences open for you. It's a kind of miracle. You couldn't make it happen, but there it is. And doesn't it tell you that this reality is really hidden from you only by some little shards of nothing, really? You know, it's really very close. It's really something very available to you, even if it feels like, what? I don't get it. So, and this kind of talk is really the move from Sutra to Tantra. You know, Tantra and Dzogchen is the path that, as Rinpoche often says, and I forgot to, but I'll say it now, when he introduces this practice, you know, this is a practice in one life, in one body. Enlightenment is possible. It's that close. It's just a little problem. It's just in something as delicate, gossamer, and ungraspable as grace itself is going to, whoof, right? And then it opens. And all of you are describing that, you know, to some degree in one way or another. There are a lot of blessings in this practice. And also interesting how many of you, maybe everyone, mentioned the body. And of course, we did focus on the body. And one of the things, Longchenpa really lays it, and he says it in one sentence, and very clearly, and just to remind us, in his Treasury of Precious Philosophical Systems, Trumtadzu, which is a big, thick book. He talks about all the philosophical systems going from actually non-Buddhist Vaibhashika through to Tantra and Dzogchen. And he says, so Tantra, what's important about Tantra is that we're connecting with particular places in the body. And we're not just in our heads. The way he puts it is, this is not the province of the dialectic schools. Right? Even though he's spent half the book talking about that. So that's also part of our learning. We're touching into our bodies. Our bodies are turning into light, into space, and our minds also are filled with the activity of reality itself. That's really what the mandala offering is. We'll go over it line by line after our break, but I just want to really segue from your experience, your multisensory experience. And this is actually really significant. And I noticed a couple of people nodding, you know, when Sharon was saying, well, it was when you said, you know, try to combining the kinesthetic with the visual. You know, in Dzogchen, as Rinpoche also often says, and it's really important, one of the things that is different about Tantra in general, and particularly in the way we practice Dzogchen, is that it's not just all about naked reality. It's about what happens in reality. So a way of saying this that he has said, and you may remember, is that, you know, in Dzogchen, we are also, in Tantra, we are engaging conventional objects. You know, we have tigles. Well, maybe not that conventional, but, you know, tigles, Buddha bodies, instruments, the play of reality itself offering to its own expression as deities. That's what the mandala is, right? We'll see it line by line, but it's amazing. And so And with Namo Sarva Dakiye, we said we open kind of already into this space. Maybe we don't really understand it so very well. And in the refuge, we get a sense of the unborn state of naked reality itself, and we get a sense of the refuge that is. We get a sense of the refuge that bodhicitta is, the actual bodhicitta that is uncompounded and wholly unified reality. And in the Vajrasattva practice, we practice, I think the main thing that we practice in that practice is starting to feel ourselves to be this all-suffusing field in which there is no inside and outside, right? That's what the text says. And then we just feel we're getting more and more translucent and less bounded, less and less inside and outside. And then, maybe we find a point where we're just kind of resting in that open, empty, spacious field, and we right? We seal it so that that's our experience. And now with the mandala, we're moving forward to recognize that reality, and Dzogchen describes it, is not only gane takpa, primordially pure, right? That's the one aspect of reality. That's the unchanging aspect of reality that's primordially pure, gatak. There's also that's kind of the unborn part. And then there's also the unceasing part, which has also been introduced already. Unceasing nature of reality. And what we see in mandala, finally, we've already talked about the union of that in the Vajrasattva, Sungjuk, the union of the diamond being, great union, right? That line in the Vajrasattva. And in the mandala, now we are experientially invited to participate in the hundrup, the spontaneous arising, the dynamism of reality, the hundrup, the spontaneous, and these two. For Dzogchen, to understand reality, you must have both of these. There's that which doesn't change, the primordial purity, and that is the unceasing, ongoing movement, Renee, movement, right within that spontaneous, within that primordial reality, there's dynamism. And in the mandala, that dynamism arises both as heaps of light, which are the offering, and they also, that same dynamism arises as deities to which they are offered, and there's no difference. It's all the play of reality, and we get to play in that in our relaxed, silky way. Yeah? We are the mandala. Okay, well, that was fun. I'm sorry Harvey missed it too. He'll be back. And he will resume his 1 o'clock, continue going over the practice. All right, so in this refreshing moment, let's have more refreshment, and we'll have a break, and we'll get back at, I'll say 10 off, okay? So you have a full 15 minutes, and please be back and settled by 10 off. So come back 12 off. Settle. Thank you.